What happens when a guest walks into one of the most watched talk shows on television, sits down in front of millions of people, and decides to pick a fight with the one person in that room she should never have crossed? It only took 31 seconds. 31 seconds of live television. That is all it took for everything to fall apart. 31 seconds for a calm, professional, and deeply respected television host to be pushed to a breaking point. 31 seconds for one of the most famous women in the world to reveal exactly who she really is behind closed doors. And 31 seconds for millions of viewers watching at home to see something they will never, ever forget. This is the story of what happened inside that studio. The words that were said, the lines that were crossed, and the moment everything changed. So let us go back. Let us go back to the very beginning, before the cameras rolled, before the audience took their seats, and before the tension in that room became so thick you could cut it with a knife. Joy Behar has been a part of television for decades. She is sharp. She is funny. She is honest. And most importantly, she does not back down. Joy has spent years on that stage, sitting across from all kinds of guests. Presidents, celebrities, controversial figures. She has seen it all. She knows how to handle pressure. She knows how to handle difficult people. And she knows, better than almost anyone in that business, how to keep things moving and keep things civil, no matter who is sitting next to her. There is a reason Joy has lasted as long as she has in this industry. It is not because she is the loudest person in the room. It is not because she goes looking for trouble. It is because she is steady. She is grounded. She is the kind of person who can walk into any situation, no matter how messy, no matter how volatile, and hold her ground without breaking a sweat. That is a rare quality, and on this particular day, that quality was going to be tested in a way it had never been tested before. But on this particular day, the guest sitting across from her was not just any celebrity. This was Meghan Markle. And Meghan Markle walked onto that stage with something to prove. Now, let us be clear about something. Joy Behar is a professional. She has done this job for a very long time. When you sit down across from Joy, she is going to be polite. She is going to be warm. She is going to welcome you, and she is going to give you a chance to speak. That is just who she is. But Joy is also a woman who has earned her place in that chair, and she is not someone you push around. Meghan came onto the show, and from the very first moment, something felt off. The energy in the room shifted. The audience could feel it. Joy could feel it. And if you watched closely, you could see it in Joy's eyes. She was reading the situation. She was already on guard. And the people in that audience, the real people sitting in those seats, they felt it too. There was a buzz in the room before a single word was spoken. The kind of buzz you get when everyone around you knows something big is about to happen, but nobody can say exactly what it is. People were looking at each other, whispering. The producers backstage were watching their monitors a little more carefully than usual. Something was building, and everyone in that room could feel the heat of it. The interview started simply enough. Joy leaned forward in her seat, smiled the way she always does at the top of a show, and said, "Well, Meghan, it is so great to have you here. We have been really looking forward to this conversation." And Meghan smiled back. But it was the kind of smile that did not quite reach her eyes. She shifted in her seat, folded her hands in her lap, and said, "Thank you, Joy. I appreciate that. I really do. But I have to be honest with you. I did not come here to just have a nice little chat." Joy blinked. Just for a second. But she caught herself fast, the way she always does, and she nodded slowly and said, "Okay. Well, that is fine. We are all ears. Go ahead." And that is when it started. Meghan leaned forward and said, "I think the problem with this show, and I say this with the most respect, is that nobody here ever really asks the hard questions. You all sit here and you smile and you laugh and you nod, but nobody actually challenges anyone. and I think that is a problem. The studio went quiet. Not the kind of quiet you hear when someone says something funny and everyone is waiting for the punchline. This was a different kind of quiet. This was the kind of quiet that happens when someone says something that nobody expected. The kind of quiet that makes every single person in that room sit up a little straighter. Joy did not flinch. She held Meghan's gaze for a moment, and then she said very calmly, "Meghan, I have been asking hard questions on live television for longer than most people have been watching television. So I think we are okay on that front. But I am curious. What question do you think we should be asking?" And this is where it got interesting. Meghan paused. She took a breath, and then she said, "I think someone should ask why this country treats certain people the way it does. And I think someone should ask why the media gets to decide who is a hero and who is a villain. Because I have seen both sides of that. And trust me, it is not fair." Now, here is the thing. On the surface, that sounds like a reasonable thing to say. It sounds like the kind of thing a lot of people might agree with. But the way Meghan said it, the way she looked at Joy when she said it, told a completely different story. She was not talking about the media in general. She was talking about Joy. She was talking about that show. She was pointing a finger directly at the people sitting in that room. And Joy knew it. Joy leaned back for just a second. She took a breath of her own. And then she said, "Meghan, I hear you. And look, I agree that the media is not always fair. That is a conversation we have had on this show many, many times. But I want to make sure I understand what you are saying. Are you saying that we, here on this show, have been unfair to you?" Meghan did not hesitate. She looked straight into the camera and said, "I am saying that I have been treated in a way that I think most people in this country would not accept. And I am saying that sometimes the people who are supposed to be on your side are the ones who do the most damage." Joy nodded slowly. She kept her voice steady. She said, "Okay, I can work with that. Can you give us an example? Because I want to be fair here. I want to hear your side." And Meghan said, "My side? Joy, my side has never been heard. Not really. Not by people like you." There it was. People like you. Those 3 words landed in that studio like a stone dropping into still water. You could feel the ripple move through the room. A few people in the audience shifted in their seats. The other hosts on the panel exchanged a glance. And Joy, to her credit, did not react the way most people would have. She did not get angry. She did not get defensive. She simply looked at Meghan and said, very quietly, "People like me. Can you help me understand what you mean by that?" And here is something important. Joy asking that question was not weakness. It was not her being soft or letting Meghan get away with something. It was actually one of the smartest things she could have done in that moment. Because when you ask someone to explain themselves, when you give them the space to say out loud exactly what they mean, you give them the chance to hang themselves with their own words. And Joy knew that. Joy knew that if she just stayed calm and kept asking Meghan to keep talking, eventually Meghan would say something that would show the whole world exactly who she really was. Meghan smiled. And it was not a kind smile. It was the kind of smile that told you she knew exactly what she was doing. She said, "I mean people who have a platform, people who have power, people who get to sit behind a desk and decide what everyone else thinks." Joy let that sit for a moment. The studio was so quiet you could hear the hum of the lights overhead. Then Joy said, "Meghan, I want to point something out. You are sitting on a platform right now. You are on live television. You are talking to millions of people. So I think we both have a platform here. The question is what we do with it." It was a perfect response. Calm, measured, fair. The kind of response that shows exactly why Joy has been doing this job for as long as she has. She did not attack. She did not escalate. She just held up a mirror and let Meghan look into it. But Meghan did not like what she saw. Meghan's jaw tightened. You could see it. Her smile faded, and she said, "Joy, I am not here to argue with you. I am here to have an honest conversation. But every time I try to be honest, someone like you finds a way to turn it around and make it about them." Joy shook her head, very gently, and said, "I am not making it about me, Meghan. I am just asking you to be specific, because right now, you are making some very big claims, and I think our audience deserves to hear exactly what you mean." And Meghan said, "What I mean is that people in this industry have spent years tearing me down, and nobody said a word. Nobody defended me. And now I am supposed to come on here and pretend like everything is fine?" Joy looked at her for a long moment, and then she said something that would become one of the most talked about moments of that entire broadcast. She said, "Meghan, I have defended a lot of people on this show. I have defended people who were being treated unfairly, and I have done it loudly, and I have done it publicly. But here's what I have also learned in all these years. If you want people to defend you, it helps to be someone that people want to defend." The audience let out a low murmur, not a gasp, not applause, just a sound that said everyone in that room understood exactly what Joy just said, and Meghan understood it too. Her face changed. The composure she had walked in with, the careful, polished, practiced calm, it started to crack. She sat up straighter. Her hands, which had been resting in her lap, moved to the armrest of her chair, and she said, in a voice that was noticeably sharper than before, "Excuse me? What is that supposed to mean?" Joy did not back down, not even a little. She said, "It means exactly what it sounds like, Meghan. I am not attacking you. I am being honest with you. You came on this show, and you said you wanted an honest conversation. Well, this is what that looks like." Meghan opened her mouth to say something, but Joy held up her hand, just slightly, and continued. "You have been talking for a few minutes now about how unfairly you have been treated. And maybe that is true. I am not going to sit here and tell you your feelings are wrong, but I will tell you this. The way you are sitting here right now, the way you are talking to me, the way you are talking to this audience, that is not someone who is being humble. That is not someone who is grateful for the chance to share her story. That is someone who came here with a script." The word script hit the room like a slap. Meghan's eyes went wide, just for a flash, just long enough for everyone watching to see it. And then her face hardened. The softness was gone. Whatever mask she had been wearing when she walked into that studio, it was off now. And what was underneath it was not pretty. You could see it in the way her body changed, the way her shoulders pulled back, the way her chin lifted just slightly, the way it does when someone feels backed into a corner and they are about to come out swinging. The room could feel it. The air shifted, and everyone watching knew, right then and right there, that this was the moment things were going to get ugly. She said, "A script? Are you serious right now? I came here to be real. I came here to tell the truth. And you are sitting there accusing me of having a script?" Joy leaned forward. She kept her voice calm, but there was a firmness underneath it now. The kind of firmness that comes from someone who has been in this business long enough to know when someone is trying to manipulate the moment. She said, "Meghan, I have been doing this for a very long time, and I have sat across from a lot of people who came on this show claiming they just wanted to tell the truth. And do you know what the difference is between the people who are actually being honest and the people who are putting on a show? The honest ones do not get defensive when you ask them a simple question." Meghan stared at her. The audience was completely silent now. You could feel the air in that room tighten, the way it does right before a storm hits. And then Meghan did something that nobody in that studio expected. She laughed. It was not a warm laugh. It was not the kind of laugh that makes people smile along with you. It was a sharp, bitter laugh, the kind that tells you someone has just decided they are done pretending. And she said, "Oh my God, you know what? This is exactly what I was talking about. This is exactly why I did not want to come on this show. People like you, Joy. People who think they can just sit there and psychoanalyze everyone who sits across from them." Joy did not laugh. She did not smile. She just looked at Meghan with those calm, steady eyes and said, "Meghan, I am not psychoanalyzing you. I am reacting to you. There is a big difference. And I think if you sit with that for a minute, you might understand what I am saying." But Meghan was not sitting with anything anymore. She was done. You could see it in every part of her body. The way she was sitting, the way her hands were gripping the armrest, the way her jaw was set. She was not listening. She was loading. And the people in that audience, the ones who had been quiet and patient up until this point, they were starting to see it too. They were starting to see that this was not someone who had come on the show to share her story. This was someone who had come on the show to win. And you cannot win a fight with Joy Behar when Joy Behar is the one holding the ground. She said, "You know what, Joy? I think the real problem here is that you are threatened by me." Joy blinked. Just once. And then she said, very slowly, very clearly, "Meghan, I am going to be very direct with you right now. I have been in this industry for decades. I have worked with some of the most powerful people in television. I have never once felt threatened by a guest. Not once, and I am not about to start now." Meghan sat forward. I'm way forward, almost out of her chair. And she said, "Then why are you attacking me?" Joy shook her head. She said, "I have not attacked you one single time during this conversation. Not once. I have asked you questions. I have listened to your answers. And every time I have gently pushed back, you have turned it into something it is not. And I think everyone in this room and everyone watching at home can see that." And she was right, because that was exactly what had been happening. Every time Joy asked a fair question, Meghan turned it into an attack. Every time Joy pushed back, Meghan reframed it as being against her. It was a pattern, and it was becoming very, very clear to everyone watching. The audience stirred. A few people nodded. The energy in the room was shifting. It was no longer neutral. It was moving toward Joy. People were watching Meghan in a way that was different now. They were watching her the way you watch someone when you are starting to figure out what they are really doing. Meghan seemed to sense it too, because her next move was the boldest thing she had done all day. She looked out at the audience, spread her hands wide, and said, "Does anyone here see what is happening? She is attacking me on her own show. On her own show." And the audience did something that Meghan clearly did not expect. They did not cheer for her. They did not gasp in sympathy. A few people shifted uncomfortably, but mostly the room just stayed quiet. Quiet and watchful. Joy let the silence do its work for a moment, and then she said, "Meghan, I have given you this platform. I have sat here and listened to everything you have said. And I have not once raised my voice. I have not once been rude to you. But I will tell you something right now. You walked into this studio and you started making accusations. You have called this show unfair. You have implied that I am part of some kind of machine that is out to get you. And now you are sitting here telling our audience that I am attacking you. And I think at this point most people watching at home can see who is actually doing the attacking here." The room erupted. Not in cheers exactly, more like a collective exhale, the kind of sound a room makes when someone finally says out loud the thing that everyone has been thinking but nobody has been brave enough to say. Meghan's face went red. Actually red. You could see it even under the studio lights. She opened her mouth, closed it, and then opened it again, and said, "This is unbelievable. This is actually unbelievable. I cannot believe this is happening right now. Joy looked at her for a long, long moment, and then she said, with the kind of calm that only comes from years and years of experience, "Meghan, I think we are done here." And that was when it happened. Meghan stood up. She did not stand up slowly. She did not stand up gracefully. She shot up out of that chair like a spring had released underneath her. She grabbed her things, and she looked at Joy. And she said, "Fine. You know what? Fine. I did not need to be here anyway. I did not need this." Joy looked up at her, still sitting, still calm, and said, "You are more than welcome to leave, Meghan. The door is right there." And Meghan turned. She turned, and she walked. Fast. Purposeful. The kind of walk that says, "I am leaving," before I say something even worse. The heels clicking against the studio floor, sharp and loud in the sudden silence of the room. Every single eye in that studio was on her. Every camera was tracking her. And not one person in that audience made a sound. They just watched. They watched her walk, and they watched her face, and they watched the way she carried herself, and they saw everything they needed to see. She made it all the way to the edge of the stage before she stopped. She turned back, just once, and pointed directly at Joy, and said, "You are going to regret this." The studio was dead silent. Joy did not move. She did not flinch. She just looked at Meghan, calmly, steadily, and said, "I really do not think I will." And Meghan turned back around and walked off that stage, off camera, out of the studio, gone. The room stayed quiet for a beat, 2 beats, 3, and then, slowly, one person in the audience started to clap, and then another, and then another, until the whole studio was applauding. Not the polite, dutiful kind of applause you hear at the end of a segment. Real applause. The kind that comes from the chest. The kind that says we saw what just happened. We were all here, and we all know exactly what that was. Joy sat there for a moment, letting the applause wash over her, and then she took a breath, looked out at the cameras, and smiled. Not a big smile, not a show smile, just a quiet, real, honest smile. The kind of smile that says, "I did my job today." And she did. Because here is the truth of it. Joy Behar did not start that fight. She never threw the first punch. She never raised her voice. She never said a single thing that was cruel or unfair or uncalled for. All she did, all she ever did, was sit there and be honest. And sometimes, being honest is the most powerful thing you can do in a room full of people. There is a certain kind of person in this world who believes they can walk into any room and take it over. They believe that if they tell their story loud enough, if they frame it the right way, if they position themselves as the one being hurt, then everyone will fall in line. And for a lot of people, in a lot of situations, it works. It works because most people do not want conflict. Most people will nod along just to keep the peace. But every once in a while, that kind of person runs into someone who will not nod, someone who will not look away, someone who will sit right there and say, plainly and simply, what everyone else is too afraid to say out loud. That person, on this day, was Joy. Meghan Markle came into that studio believing she could control the narrative. She believed she could walk in, play the victim, and walk out with everyone on her side. She had done it before. She had done it in interviews. She had done it in the press. And for a while, for a short while, it almost worked. But Joy saw through it. Joy saw it from the very first second. And instead of playing along, instead of giving Meghan exactly what she wanted, Joy did the one thing that someone like Meghan cannot handle. Joy held her accountable, quietly, calmly, firmly, and in front of millions of people. That is the moment. That is what happened in that studio. 31 seconds is all it took for the cracks to show. and once they showed, there was no putting them back together. Joy Behar sat in that chair the way she has sat in it for years, with grace, with strength, with honesty. And on that day, in front of everyone watching, she showed the world exactly what it looks like when someone who truly has nothing to prove faces someone who is desperate to prove everything. Not everyone gets to see a moment like that in their lifetimes. But the people who were in that studio that day, they saw it live.